platform. And I just want to remind you guys about the benefits of being a member of the System Dynamics Society. One of the most important benefits of being a member is that you get free access to all seminar series, such as this one. You get a great discount on our conference upcoming in July. You get full access to our System Dynamics Review, the scientific journal of the society. Of course, you also get exclusive prices on our bookshop. And if you plan to study more System Dynamics, you have discount on our partners' online courses. And the best way to network and get to know people in the System Dynamics Society field is to be a member of the System Dynamics Society. And if you haven't got the news, we open our registrations on March 1st, and you can now register for the conference in July. You can head to systemdynamics.org/conference and register. And if you will enjoy the seminar series, we have an upcoming seminar at the end of the month on March 24. It's Applied System Dynamics for students and beginners, and I really hope to see you guys all there. And I would like to thank all the sponsors of the System Dynamics Society. It's because of their help that we can expand the field worldwide. And if you'd like to sponsor the society, please reach out to me and Rebecca at office@systemdynamics.org, and we can start a conversation from there. And just a small disclaimer, the projects and works that we present here in the seminar series have not been subjected to review. So it can contain some errors and omissions, but I hope you guys understand that. And we share this work in the spirit of openness, collaboration, and learning. And if you'd like to send us feedback, please do so by using the survey that we sent out after the seminar. And so just a small agenda for today. We have a 40 minutes presentation from the group from the University of Bergen. And then we're going to have 45 minutes of Q&A and open discussion. And by the experience from previous seminars, we saw that people like to stick around and just have an open talk. So if you just want to stick around for 10 minutes after the seminar, feel free to do so. And we're going to use Poll Everywhere to collect questions and insights and other discussions to the panel. So if I'll go ahead and just give you guys 1 minute to scan this QR code, or maybe use the link below. I think there is going to be the link is going to be in the chat as well, so you can easily access the platform via the chat or scanning the QR code. Just to get you guys used to it, we can start with a small question and quick question. Just I really want to know where you guys are from. Just waiting a little bit so on some replies. Brazil, my home country. Belgium. Of course, some people in Europe. Ireland. New York. So people from the US, of course. Norway, our group is there. So Albania. Africa. Where in Africa? There's so many countries, great countries in Africa. Where else? Turkey. There's a lot of people from everywhere. Basically cover all the time zones, I guess. That makes me happy. And just one more quick question. I really need to my future PhD I intend to take, which is, oh, why is this not moving? Next question is, do you guys believe there's life outside the planet Earth? Or are we just alone in this universe? And sorry, I just need this data. And by now, you guys already got used to the platform. Is this question showing up for you guys? Oh. These also show responses. Oh, yes. No, most people say no. I'm in the 35% who believes there are some people out there. Not people, but whatever it is. Good. Thank you, guys. It's really important survey.
You're confusing the question, Fernando.
Sorry? I'm confusing the question. And the last one. Sorry, guys, I'm having some trouble here. So let's get going. And today we have a group from the University of Bergen. I'm happy to introduce you guys to Birgit Kopainsky, who is our former president of the System Dynamics Society, and her group of researchers, Anaely, Brooke, Christina, and Lars. And so I'm ready to just head over to you, Birgit, if you want to do so. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Fernando. Could you stop sharing your screen? And then let me get this right. I can't multitask, so let me first share my screen and then wish you all a warm welcome. There. Can you see my slides now? Fernando, can you see my slides?
Yes, I can see you.
Okay, good, excellent. Welcome, everybody. This is in equal measures wonderful to see so many people and so many familiar people here, and it's also absolutely terrifying. So I'll spend the next 90 minutes fighting out this battle in my head, whether I should be super happy or extremely terrified. Let's see. We're here today mainly because we experienced what everybody else experienced a year ago, namely that our wonderful plans for wonderful work were completely thrown overboard by this disturbance called COVID pandemic, and that we had a wonderful project that we were super excited about, and suddenly we had to do things absolutely differently. So we're here because we just had to run a group model building workshop that we had promised, and I'll talk a little about that. And we couldn't wait. We couldn't wait for COVID to be over. So we tried out. I wanted to say improvised, but that doesn't sound scientific enough. So we innovated and experimented with new ways of bringing this interactive knowledge elicitation and knowledge sharing, knowledge negotiation method online. The reason why we're here probably is not because we were the first ones or because we're the only ones who have done on group model building online, who have experimented with group model building online. I would say the reason why we're here is, on the one hand, because there is this amazing bunch of people who just sat down and said, so we did this, it worked, it was wonderful, let's write it down. And it was especially Brooke who just cracked a whip and made us write this Notes and Insights article that then got published in the System Dynamics Review, where we document and reflect on how we adapt group model building scripts to online settings. And the other person to blame is, of course, Rebecca, who just kept nagging me and saying, when are you going to talk about this? When are you going to bring this into a webinar format? And that's an important disclaimer, because it's not our intention to give the impression that we're the only ones who know how to do group model building online. Quite the opposite. We have our own purpose for doing this is, yes, we realized when putting together this seminar that we have accumulated quite a bit of experience and quite a bit of tools and tips and tricks, and some of them worked and some of them didn't work. So very happy to share our experiences, but also we're really interested in kickstarting a conversation, and a conversation that is very much in the spirit of what Fernando mentioned as a disclaimer for this seminar series. We're interested to kickstart a conversation that helps all of us learn from and with each other about doing system dynamics online. So that's why we're here. And I keep saying we. Fernando already introduced the team. We're basically a bunch of people at the University of Bergen who love system dynamics and who love it too much for COVID to stop us from doing it, even under extenuated circumstances. So we're all of us here. All of us will at different points in the seminar talk. But we also want to acknowledge some people who are not here, but who helped, especially with this first workshop that got it all started. Igor was there to help us think through the entire design of the workshop, and Sanjeet just came along because we needed help, and he, being Sanjeet, he just helped. And I also want to acknowledge, last but not least, the Municipality of Bergen, who was generous enough to sponsor this initial workshop that started it all. So what we have in mind for today is illustrated here in the boxes, and the size of the boxes is indicative of the amount of time that we plan on spending on the different parts of the agenda. I will start with giving a very quick background and introduction to what we've been doing in the past year, and then Anaely and Christina will take over and show you, you know, the actual practical implementation, how it was really done, beyond the blah blah, the strategic terms. Brooke will take us through some lessons learned, and Lars-Kristian will then spend quite a bit of time with you discussing and sharing experience. We would like to encourage you already now to share your experiences with running group model building online. It sounds like we have a lot of time, but I guess if everybody starts telling their own stories, we will run into time issues. So please type as much as you can in the chat. We're really interested in learning about similarities and differences in your experiences, and in your hacks, how you improvised to make this work online. There is a separate box here that's probably a little dependent upon time and how the discussion and experience sharing is going, but we've prepared some hands-on Miro practice so that those of you who are interested in staying on can actually dip your toes and get your fingers dirty in this online collaborative whiteboard platform that we've been using. There we go, that's it. So a little bit of background and introduction. We had this amazing plan. A year ago, we had this amazing plan. We had started, you know, connecting more with businesses in the Bergen area where the System Dynamics group is located. We had started a conversation on how the System Dynamics group that is kind of hidden at the University of Bergen meets the people in Bergen. And the grand plan was to start a conversation around two topic areas that are hot in Bergen. One is the strategy of the Municipality of Bergen to become fossil-free by 2030. And the other one is the future of ocean business, being a somewhat important issue for a region that has lived off the oil sector and needs to think about the future beyond oil. So the plan A was this wonderful idea of System Dynamics meets Bergen, and we had this intention of iterating between talking to Bergen experts and System Dynamics experts. So the plan was to have an initial systems mapping workshop with Bergen experts around these two topics, and then take the systems maps produced by the Bergen experts to the System Dynamics conference that was supposed to be hosted in Bergen, right? Remember, you guys should have come to Bergen last year. We wanted you to explore Bergen. We wanted to organize a hackathon in Bergen, possibly with Bergen alumni, to translate this map into simulation models. And then we had this even more amazing plan of going back to the innovation ecosystem in Bergen and, you know, discuss the outcomes. We all know what happened. We all know that we had to pull off Plan B. So Plan B fundamentally is the same thing. Initial systems mapping workshop, hackathon with system dynamics modelers, bringing it back to Bergen people, but online. And what we're talking about today is this very first workshop that we facilitated with people in Bergen. And I just want to quickly mention, so this first workshop that we organized in Bergen was with actual real people, you know, like representatives of the private and public sector from Bergen or in and around Bergen, who were either interested in the fossil-free 2030 strategy or in discussions around the future of ocean business. Because this had to be done online and everybody was already a bit Zoom fatigued, Lars-Kristian spent a pretty much insane amount of time calling people personally, calling them on the phone, recruiting participants for the workshop so that we would get people who were interested, who were willing to contribute, who wanted something to learn, and he did some magic. They all showed up. They all contributed. They all generated really wonderful feedback stories. So we then spent, 4 hours together with these participants, with the first part on general introduction to systems thinking and system dynamics, where we also positioned the workshop in the bigger picture of workshop hackathon coming back. And then we split into two groups where we worked with the two different Miro boards that we'll talk about in detail. Today we'll focus really especially on this part, how we worked in the groups on these Miro boards and in general what we've learned about facilitating workshops online. So that was Plan B. But those of you who know me, I am the eternal optimist. So Plan B was maybe not what we had originally had in mind, but there is a beauty about Plan B. And the beauty of Plan B is that we realized after a while, when this first workshop was over and more workshops were coming up, and people started being more and more interested in doing this online, that we already have a lot of material and information and experience to share. So we created this somewhat improvised website. It's never going to win a prize for beauty or design, but our intent with this website, with this online system dynamics collaborative, is really to make openly accessible templates for running group model building sessions online, resources, and other examples. So that's the other part of today. It's the big launch and reveal of this repository of resources and templates. So that's the beauty of Plan B. And I'll hand it over to Anaely to actually talk you through Plan B, how we practically implemented this.
Go to the next slide, please.
Yep, there.
Thank you, Birgit. I will be talking about the process we followed during the design phase of the workshop last year. We will be using the scripts map framework to illustrate the process in which we adapted the group model building scripts to plan for the workshop and how we integrated it with the Miro workspace. Next. So within this stage, the stakeholders were being identified and recruited by one member of our team, like Birgit said, Lars-Kristian Trellevik, who is a Bergen local and who has a very strong and professional and research network in Norway. So since the beginning of the workshop planning, it was decided to give participants an introduction to systems thinking, we prepared a summary of the workshop purpose and the description, and an overview of the plan for the day's activity, including break times. Next. I will be now zooming in into the middle green section, where I will describe the first part of the design process. We adapted the scripts map framework and highlighted in purple the steps that were added due to the online adaptation. Then we will show you a video describing the pink area that you see in the bottom of this diagram, which is basically the actual flow of the workshop. We want to note that during the overall workshop design process, there were many iterations among these steps during this adaptation process, along with repeated meetings with the modeling team to rehearse and improve the structure of the workshop after we migrated to Miro. Next. So in the first iteration, we considered both the time we have agreed with our stakeholders, as well as the purpose of the workshop, which we communicated as a crash course in systems thinking to develop the outline of the agenda. As mentioned before, we planned for the welcome and introduction to systems thinking, a small icebreaker, the main systems mapping activities, which was planned to last 4 hours, and finally a closing section to wrap up and discuss next steps. We revisited and modified the agenda as the design was proceeding. We mainly focused on considerations on necessary time or steps for our stakeholders to migrate between platforms and get accustomed to the online environment and its tools. For example, we designed an icebreaker in which we asked participants to use tools relevant for the following activities of the workshop, mainly to help them getting accustomed to Miro tools and to allow them to feel more comfortable with environment. So the icebreaker required only some drawing using the pen tool and some typing. So after the first dress rehearsal, we also revisited the process mapping again, as we identified an additional role in the modeling team. This was a stage manager, which can be described as a person controlling which view of the board the participant can see in front of them. I will be talking a bit more about this extra role later. Next. So these were the scripts we selected from Scriptopedia to use and adapt in this online workshop. And we also allocated time per activity. We were looking for exercises that allowed divergent and convergent activities. So the scripts we selected were those ones: graph over time, variable elicitation, model review, action ideas, next steps, and closing. We identified also here the main components in Miro tools for each script. We asked ourselves questions like, what were our needs and priorities that could allow us to conduct each exercise? So we needed an environment that permitted independent work, such as drawing graphs, arrows, etc., but also focused the participants' attention at certain points in time. Next. Based on the identified needs and priorities in the previous stage, we started looking for a platform that could accommodate those requirements and what specific tools we could use. So we chose Miro. And the team members in charge of the workshop design created a prototype board in Miro and shared it with the rest of the team to check the process. We went back and forth with Miro and the script, and again, we had several meetings to improve the process. We found and overcame some technical challenges, but I will talk more about this in the next slide. So we continued in parallel working on the scripts and Miro. So the tasks of the script were consistent. We started with a table in Excel with the script, and then checking with Miro the tools and features. So our recommendation in this stage is that there needs to be close collaboration among the core design team. In this case, it was between a facilitator and a modeler. In a later stage, we included a stage manager as well. Next. So this is a screenshot of one of the sections of our final board. This was the graphs over time activity. As you can see, there is an example factor on top explained by the facilitator. Each participant had a desk with their name on top. They also had a stack of empty graphs in the middle. We have a clustering area. Finally, there is an area in which duplicated and parked variables could be placed. So the main challenges we identified during this stage was first, arranging the workspace with the right tools in a way that attention focus from participants was not compromised, but at the same time that we had some control over the board at some point to avoid participants wandering off the board or not paying attention to what the facilitator was indicating. So for example, we were looking for the ability to zoom in and out the variable without losing details, and that participants would be able to see things. We also placed the desks that you see around the clustering area very close to it, so the participants would not move far. And Miro offers certain features that were very helpful during the workshop, like bring everyone to me and share screen. That will be explained in detail in the video. So we also aimed at mimicking the feel that a participant should have in a group model building session, preferably. So we wanted to provide something close to that feel. For example, the participants experience moving elements on their own desks, typing their own variables, drawing behavior over time, etc. So we wanted that participants would be able to experience this as much as possible. So another thing that we considered at this point was the need of a built-in video call capacity in Miro. And that meant getting Miro Prime license to get this video feature for the workshop. So we were able to solve these challenges by practicing and trying out the features that Miro offered. Next. So we believe that in an online environment, non-verbal cues should be very explicit among members of the modeling team. With this, I mean that the modeler and stage manager should be very familiar with the steps of the facilitation script so that they catch the cues where they are supposed to do the next task. In this phase, it was also important to recognize that are some things that some of the modeling team members should be doing simultaneously and independently. For example, when the facilitator is eliciting variables with participants, the modeler could be theming them in the clustering area simultaneously, while the stage manager has the shared screen feature. So the participants focus on the variable elicitation with the facilitator and not on the modeler's task. So the design team tested repeatedly that the flow of the process was working properly. For example, we asked ourselves questions like, is the task easy to perform? What should participants be looking at? Should they have control of the board so they can look closer at some element they want to see? Or is it more important that everyone is focused on it and seeing the exact same thing? What needs to be done in the background, etc. Next. Here's an example of the graph over time activity script. And as you can see, the 3 rows and tasks are described in these columns. It's such a shame that you cannot read very clearly. This is the way the entire script was developed for all activities. If we see, for example, the last item in the table highlighted in orange, this was a group work where the facilitator is eliciting group graphed over time that the participants produced during the previous individual work. Meanwhile, the stage manager is focusing the view and zooming in each participant's desk while the graph is explained by the participant. Also, the modeler is simultaneously grouping the variables in the clustering area independently. Yeah, and then the modeler would explain the themes in the clustering area. Next. Thank you. So far, we have repeated many times that we practiced a lot. Well, we found it was necessary since this was the first time we tried to do this. At this point, it is good to include the whole team for they provide feedback and get familiar with the flow and with the platform too. During the first dress rehearsal, we recognized that the need of this extra modeling member role, the stage manager, and we went back to modify the process mapping and follow process again with this new role. So finally, during the dress rehearsals, we decided to use additional applications as Miro could not meet all of our needs. It was used in conjunction with Zoom for the first part of the session before migrating to Miro. Email, we use Google Drive and WhatsApp during various stages of the planning and execution. Particularly, we communicated via WhatsApp as a backstage channel during the workshop. So in a few words, the whole design process was about modifying the facilitation script, adapting the board in Miro, and iterating again and again. Next. There might be a need to develop instructions and materials for the participants when joining the platform. So for instance, in Miro, you need to be logged in to be able to use the built-in video feature. So participants needed to subscribe the previous day, or for the specific tools to be explored if necessary. So in our case, we recorded a brief tutorial video about Miro and send it to participants via email a few days before the workshop. Next. Okay, so as I said, we will be showing you a short video next. It is around 8 minutes, where Christina explains the workshop flow that describes how we follow the script activities in sequence, but she will be showing how it was done in Miro. Next.
Welcome to the Miro environment and the board we have developed for the systems mapping workshop. In this video, we will give an overview of the different activities that one can run using this board. And here you see a top level view of the entire board, and we will zoom in and present the activities one by one, starting by the workshop schedule. So as you see here, the board follows a number of activities and scripts as described in Scriptopedia. And the schedule is the first thing that is presented to the stakeholders once they enter Miro. Here, to ensure that participants are in the right space, the stage manager can use a very interesting bring everyone to me function that pulls participants to their cursor before the facilitator presents the workshop timing. So after discussing this schedule, the participants are invited to an icebreaker. And the icebreaker here is used not only to allow participants to introduce themselves, but also to help them get accustomed to the tools of Miro that they will be using in their activities. So each participant and member of the modeling team has their own working space with their name on it, and the facilitator uses this medium to introduce themselves first, narrating at the same time what tools they use. So after all participants have worked and shared a few words or drawing about themselves, the group moves in the problem articulation frame. which can contain information in various forms. Here, for example, we have a presentation embedded in Miro. And it's used to discuss the main issue that will be the focus of the workshop. So for this presentation, the stage manager can use the screen sharing function within Miro's video chat to ensure that all participants view the content clearly. The next step is to move to the graphs over time activity. And here the facilitator starts by describing that initially the participants will be working individually in their appointed desks, and continues with an overview of the activity and the timing. They then present an example, starting with, of course, the explanation of the axis of the graph over time template, and then describing how to work on the template through the example. So how to change the name of the factor, how to use the pen tool to draw the behavior until the present, and then the hoped for behavior and how to change the color to represent a feared development. So after the example has been described, the team also shows a desk informing participants that they can arrange their graphs from most to least favorite, and that if they need additional factors, they can just take them from the stack next to their desk. The participants are then directed to go to their desk, start working, and reminded of the timing for this part of the activity. So after the time has passed, a volunteer is asked to present the factor. And after they finish, the graph is moved by the modeler to the clustering area. An next volunteer is called for, and the presentation of variables continues in a round-robin fashion. So all this time, the modeler has been categorizing the variables in broad themes. Let's add some additional variables here. And they present those themes, ask the participants for feedback, and when agreement has been reached, the participants are informed that we are moving to the second main activity, initiating and elaborating a causal loop diagram. So again, the facilitator begins with an overview of the activity and the timing, and then presents the frame onto which they will be working to develop the map. For convenience, the modeler can move the variables and the themes closer to the map so that it becomes easier to navigate and view the remaining variables. The facilitator starts with a script of the activity, asking participants for connections between variables, and as those are identified, the modeler moves the variables to the central space and uses arrows to connect them. In terms of polarities, while Miro has a built-in text function, this might not be very easily visible, but one can use different types of arrows or different colors to indicate a negative polarity. For new variables that were not part of the initial elicitation, the modeler can use sticky notes to introduce and connect them. So the group works, moving back and forth between the remaining variables and the map as per script. So the next activity, potentially after a break and a model review script, is the action ideas. And then once again, the facilitator starts with an overview. And then they continue with the instructions and the example and the presentation of an example. Again, they discuss how to use the tools, here how to expand this card to provide any further description they might want to add, in addition to the brief title of the idea. So the participants are once again invited to find their desk and start working. And after the allocated time passes, a volunteer is called to share their favorite suggestion with the group. The card, after it has been described, can be moved to the CLD area and connected by an arrow to the variable or variables that it is considered to be influencing. And here again, one can use different types of arrows to make clear that those are action ideas. So after all ideas have been incorporated to the map, the modeler can provide a summary before the group is moved to the final activity, next steps and closing. And again, in this space, the team can place different types of material, presentations, mirror templates, as we have here, to inform participants of next steps, thank them, and potentially ask for any feedback questions. And this concludes this quite brief overview of a group model building workshop using this specific Miro board. Thanks for listening.
Brooke.
All right, great. So I have the task of, let's see, wrapping this up a little bit with some lessons learned and some reflections on what we've done so far. Before I go to the next slide, I just want to say I've seen a lot of questions in the chats about availability of templates, videos, introductions, things like that. A lot of that information is available on our website, so I encourage you to check that out after the end of the seminar. All right, next slide, please, Birgit. So far, we've really focused on the workshop that we used as the basis for our research note. But we've done a lot since then because we're still living with Corona and we're still exploring and learning with the value of doing online group model building. So just to give you some idea of the breadth of what we've done, in the last year, we've done group model building exercises or workshops with bachelor students who had no previous background in systems dynamics or systems thinking, master's students, both groups with and without a background in system dynamics. We've worked with large businesses and the municipality of Bergen. And with those groups, they were working across sectors within their business. So in a group that they weren't normally working with. And also with sort of heterogeneous groups of experts on a specific topic that they were experts in. Additionally, we've experimented with role playing of stakeholders. This is in educational settings. We've done that with as a way to get students to really interact more deeply with the system that they're working on. And to accentuate the diversity of views that there might be on a given system when students are not necessarily very familiar with that system. We've also experimented with different Miro board setups. And of course, that all depends on what size group you're working with, what the aims are, and the length of the workshop that have really determined how we set up our Miro board. Next. I wanted to run through some of the challenges that we see with doing online group model building, as well as some of the suggestions that we have for addressing them. So the first, and I think this is probably foremost in many people's minds, is that the familiarity with technology can introduce a power dynamic. And here we're thinking mostly about access and familiarity with technology. Things that we've done, as people have mentioned, we've provided a video before the workshop that introduces people to Miro and gets them familiar with some of the functions that Miro has. So that can be one option, providing trainings before the workshop. as well in certain circumstances, providing local assistants who can help out with technology if needed. When you're online, you have a limited ability to read the room. And ways that we have found to address this issue is one, always having icebreakers to increase the comfort of participants before you really get into the depth of the workshop. Having frequent check-in with participants, and also making room for divergent or small group activities where the reading the room is less important when you're not standing on stage in front of everyone. Participating online can feel awkward. I know we've all had those experiences in Zoom meetings where somebody asks a question and nobody answers for 20 seconds and then everybody answers at once. So you may, as a facilitator, need to use more structured techniques for things like eliciting ideas when needed. And lastly, distractions, as with any online meeting. And the way we've addressed that is making sure in our structure for the workshop, of providing many short breaks and telling people ahead of time, we're going to be doing this activity for 25 minutes, and then you will have a 5-minute break for checking email and getting a cup of coffee. So we build those small breaks into the schedule and we really honor them. We stick to time. Next. And lastly is just to conclude some thoughts that we have about further research and development. We would love to learn more about facilitating for heterogeneous groups. Thus far, a lot of the work that we've done has been with fairly homogeneous groups. And obviously, if you're dealing with a heterogeneous group in person or online, that adds to the challenge of how to facilitate the group successfully through the workshop. As I've mentioned before, technology and power dynamics. Before I was talking about technology in terms of access to technology, but I also think it's important to think about participation with technology and power dynamics. And here, I think there's perhaps, things can perhaps go more than one way. So we think of working online as really enhancing power dynamics. But on the other hand, when we're on Zoom, we're all the exact same size rectangle in the corner, whether you're 5'2" or 6'3". You can, if you're nervous about what you're going to say, you can jot down notes and not draw attention to yourself. So there's some things about power dynamics that are a bit more complex than just technology is bad for power dynamics. And I would love to see more exploration of that. We're very interested in evaluating mental model changes. It would be in particular interesting to see, is there a difference between in-person and online experiences in terms of mental model changes? The technology will continue to change, and so will we. So we've, as you can see, we've been really focused on using Miro. Perhaps a new platform will pop up that will allow us to work collaboratively online and develop workshops there. So we're always on the lookout for what's coming next in terms of new features in Miro, but also other platforms that are out there. And lastly, and perhaps most importantly, we're really interested in having a forum for exchanging ideas and experiences around doing online group model building. As Birgit mentioned in the opening, we know that there are many other people working on this, and I think we all would benefit from learning from each other and exchanging ideas. So I'll just conclude by saying, as Birgit said early on, this started as a plan B, but we really see the value in the experience that we're able to provide to people with online group model building. And we look forward to future developments in terms of reaching new participants with online group model building. And of course, also building a network of practitioners and with the excitement of learning from each other as we go forward. So with that, I think we will move on to questions and discussion.
You forgot to show this again.
Oh, I'm sorry. And of course, there is the link to our website. And as I mentioned, we're always going to be, it's brand new. We will be continue to update content as we run more workshops. And it's really in the spirit of sharing and learning from each other. So we put as many resources as we can there.
Thanks, Brooke. Lars-Kristian, you're up.
Yes, thank you. All right, so now we're moving into the part where you get to scream at us. I'm now trying to track the discussion here. We will be using the Poll Everything application for our questions. And I believe Fernando is helping me with showing the, yes, so Katarina asked, I think we should start at the top here. Oh, and actually, before we get into that, I and the team, Christina, Brooke, and Anaely, we would just thank our captain and Colonel Birgit for bringing us into this team doing this. It is quite exciting to be a part of this, and we would be nowhere near what we're currently doing without Birgit's thorough guidance. So thank you, Birgit. Just wanted to say that in front of everyone.
Okay, now you made me cry. Thank you. You guys are all awesome. There are chats here that prove that. There are secret messages, private messages that say that this is a team that rocks, and I can only echo that. Sorry, I stole your thunder. Carry on.
No, it's your thunder. It was nothing to steal. Now I just lost the thing again.
My bad. Can you see this, Lars-Kristian?
Yes, now I'm seeing it.
So you,
and I think Katarina has a question that is quite interesting, and it goes for the whole experience of being part of an online workshop. She's asking, how does the causal loop formation work in the group? What if people do not agree on connections? And this is something that we have touched on in this presentation, and it comes down to group dynamics and facilitation. Perhaps you would like to comment a bit on that, Brooke?
Yeah, I mean, there's no magic answer to that question. I mean, it's a question that's not really related, I think, to online group model building as much as group model building in general. And my experience with group model building is that often if people don't agree on connections, there's often a hidden variable in there that's not being expressed. So it's just a matter of exploring that disagreement a little bit and then trying to figure out what are the variables that are relevant here.
Yeah, and having those discussions is very much part of the process. I think we could add, and really quite clarifying for the whole group. I hope that answered that question. So perhaps, how do you see virtual model building fitting with in-person model building when we have that opportunity again? This is something we have discussed quite a bit, and certainly we see and believe that there are quite a few merits in this approach to doing things that we will continue doing. And I don't think one rules out the other. I think in-person and online are complementary or suitable for different purposes or different groups. Birgit, perhaps would you add to that?
Yes, I think so. Was that our last example? I started losing track of when we facilitated what, because February was kind of a busy month. But so we were asked to, to casually help with a winter school that then turned out to have 7 different teams in 7 different European cities that all worked on their very specific climate risks and wanted to understand the processes and drivers connected to these climate risks. And we managed to find 7 facilitators. We managed to have some fun, etc. But there were the formats where all the participants were online worked much better than setups where a facilitator was facilitating online and half or all of the participants were sitting in that specific city around the table. And they started, it didn't take them very long to start ignoring the facilitator and just carrying on. Miro is easy enough to use. And they kind of politely asked the facilitator to stand back and stand by and carried on themselves. So the hybrid solution in class in group model building is really, really challenging. I have a personal preference for going either or, pre, during, and post COVID.
Thank you, Birgit. We have there are so many questions. We have a somewhat more technical one, which is not that technical, but I will still hand it over to our IT expert, which is Christina. There's a question about export. Can you export data from the Miro software?
Yes, you actually can. You can export the entire board. You can export all the factors, and Miro actually has a very interesting function. The templates that we used for the graphs over time, you can actually open those and put all the notes that the note taker is taking in the same element. So then you can actually have the entire workshop, all the notes in that board as a record. And then of course, export it, PDF, images, many options. So, yeah.
Thank you. And Anaely, someone here is asking about preparation. How much preparation time has this added to the process and typically project plan? Could you comment on that?
Or Christina, you can also take this.
I'm here.
Oh, you're
Yes, but Christina can jump in at any time because we both had like almost symbiotic relationship working on this, because it took some time and a lot of meetings among us and the other stage manager role. Yeah, but basically the design phase together with these iterations and looking for the platform. Can we say maybe 2 months before? It was in May. The workshop was in May. So
June 3rd.
Was it June 3rd.
June 3rd, 10 to 14.
Yeah, so we started planning in February, in March, and yeah, it was almost a few months.
But I think if I could just jump in, I mean, now that we have these templates and we have more experience, we know what we're doing, that preparation time has dropped dramatically.
Yes, exactly. And this is, I think, for us an important motivation to share everything, because the first preparation was quite a lot. So we said, yeah, we have to share it with people to kind of limit that first attempt even a little bit through our experience in the boards.
And certainly the first one was a lot more difficult than the second one. All these experiences, making this process faster as you go. There is one question that has a lot of votes, and I will try to ask that. I just wanted to, let's go to that one. So any attempts at asynchronous group model building? It sounds like a professor question, doesn't it, Birgit?
Yes, it does. This is an absolute professor question. And what do professors do in these circumstances? They immediately deflect it and open it up to the audience. We haven't attempted it, but we have 170 people here in the seminar. So maybe somebody has attempted it, and I would personally love to hear about that.
So the
that was good, huh?
Does anyone wish to share?
Lars, can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
So this might not fit completely, but we've typically set guidelines for ourselves to turn over a new version of the model each week. So to promise our stakeholders that they'll get something new every week and do whatever it takes to meet that deliverable, instead of saying, oh, gee, this will be a month or this will be 2 weeks, even if it's a small change. Then we all meet again as a group and they have something to work on. The problem with that is if it's a real model, a simulatable model, they need versions of the software to simulate it. Or that we use something like Insight Maker. But you know, it's a balancing of tools and expectations. But sticking to this every week, something new to keep people's interest, something we've done in the past.
All right, thank you. I'm now checking the chat here. I think there was some.
Yes, there's some more experience sharing with using Padlet, for example, which I think is fantastic, so that people can build model structures asynchronously.
Great. Did someone want to comment on that? I have too many chats up here now. Padlet, yes.
So Claudia has experience. Hannah was sharing.
Hannah, Claudia?
Yeah. Hi, this is Hannah Rakoff for the U.S. Department of Transportation. We have done that work with Padlet. It was actually the brains behind it were a group at the University of Leeds that we were collaborating with, along with some other collaborators. And Leeds have done a lot of work using Padlet, so we were able to piggyback on that. But we had a group of American cities and European cities create the beginnings of a model using Padlet in advance about how they, things about quality of life and automation of travel. And then in a synchronous workshop, we began creating a more clear model using Loopy, which is an online and free software. And then offline afterwards, as facilitators, we have been pulling that into Vensim for a report on that. So kind of 3 stages with 3 different software.
All right, thank you. That is very interesting. Anyone else who want to comment on this thread?
Yeah, Jean obviously has lots of experience in asynchronous model building. Would be shocking if you didn't, Jean.
Yeah, since I never go anywhere. It's sort of, I got a lot of notes that I'll share at some point in time if people want them, but a combination of synchronous and asynchronous, because you're working with groups of people that, you know, you would spend forever trying to figure out how to arrange a meeting to get them all together. So you have to figure out ways for individuals to contribute when they have time available to think about what the problem is. And you're working on models that are so broad that you you need to find one person who has expertise in this particular area after people have been working on the model already for 6 months, but you can't overwhelm them trying to get them to understand the whole model. You get them to understand that aspect of it that's relevant to their expertise, and you get them to contribute for 2 weeks and they're gone. You may not see them again. So there's a whole set of things in terms of trying to figure out how people can contribute when they have time available while not destroying everybody else that's working on the model at the same time. And you know, we've got some good detail worked out for doing qualitative models in Kumu because of the ability to keep track of everything that's changed by every person that changes it during the process, but there's still a few pieces that are missing. So, you know, I can send it to you and you can distribute it or whatever.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. All right. Yeah. Anyone else who wish to comment on this, or should we move on to other questions? I'm trying to follow 2 different chats here now. My capacity for simultaneous operations is apparently somewhat limited.
Birgit or the others, do you guys want to take one of those questions if you're not seeing the info everywhere?
Yes, let's do that. On top of my poll list, we've discussed the other platforms. There is a very concrete one for clarification. Is the action idea activity 4, I believe, is this, for example, a policy intervention? Yes, it is, or it could be. Anaely, do you wish to comment on that?
Yes, we basically followed the action idea script, and yes, that involves actions and policy ideas from the participants. We also could have included the leverage points, or where participants add policy levers, and we had prepared these polka dots that they could indicate in the diagram where they would see change, or you know, how to intervene in the system to break the loops and traps. But I think we didn't use it at the end because of the time, and we jumped into action ideas so they could describe more in detail the title of a brief description of the intervention. And then as you saw, I think in the video, there was like a box where they could clarify what they meant with this title. And this was for both cases, for the ocean and for the 2030. Yeah,
I think it's worth mentioning that these 2 cases that we worked on were somewhat different, both in who participated and in the sort of scope that came out of it. Whereas the 2030 case clearly had a lot of sort of policy implications. The oceans case quite quickly took direction towards innovation and you know, what to invent rather than policy. So I think that, you know, in terms of terminology, it is convenient just calling it action idea, because once you introduce the word policy, certainly in the ocean case that I was working on, to a lot of business people, you say the word policy and they quite commonly start thinking about, you know, public policy rather than something they can do or introduce into the system at whatever position. All right. Anyone else in the team who wants to comment on that whilst I'm looking at the chat and finding the next question?
I can, to buy you some time, I can just add a reflection that I haven't shared yet, so I might upset everybody on the team. But I mean, so far No, so far we've been discussing an initial systems mapping workshop to start negotiating a shared understanding or an initial a flavor to make participants get a flavor of what system dynamics or systems mapping is. We haven't talked about the quantitative stages yet, and so I'm not sure about this action idea script and its suitability so much, you know, for short teaser workshops, because it's kind of over-promising. In the last 2 or 3 sessions, I prefer to talk about, you know, what are the kinds of insights that we can, that this type of activity allows us to generate, or can you see how we can identify leverage points, but not so much, you know, brainstorm about very specific action ideas. I think that's at this point in the process, that's probably misleading.
Yeah, thanks. And now I think there are 2 questions here that are sort of related. The first one is addressing the role of the stage manager and how difficult it is, and the one beneath it is addressing the maximum number of participants. Now, the stage manager's job is quite important, and it's more important if you have more participants. I think I would challenge Christina to comment on that, and then perhaps Brooke afterwards on size of groups.
Yeah, so technically the role of the stage manager is not difficult at all. They just share their screen or use just with 2 clicks, bring everyone to where they are on the board. What is difficult is to get the dance right, because this is all about the group dancing.
What are you doing? Come here.
We don't have this. I mean, we've been online for a year now. We know the limitations in communication where we are in teams in an online environment. And this is the same for Miro. So the stage manager, modeler, and facilitator just need to spend time to practice again and again how to work and communicate. Technically, everything is quite easy in the platform.
Yeah, I'll just add that, you know, with smaller groups, I think we haven't had the need for a stage manager, but it's more the larger groups that role becomes more valuable. And in terms of the question that is up now, how big of a group do you think the online setup allows for? Is there a maximum number of participants? We have done setups where we've had multiple groups working on the same Miro board. So that's one way to address the issue. I can't remember offhand what the largest single group we've had working on a single systems map at the same time is, but you know, we're always flexible in terms of how we facilitate things. So in larger groups, you probably aren't letting everybody draw arrows at once as freely. In smaller groups, you can sort of let go of the reins a little bit more. But now that I think about it, actually, Birgit and I had a group, I think it was 35 participants.
35, yes.
Working on one systems map. And that felt like a lot of people. It was manageable, it was doable, but it definitely felt like a lot of people, as you're always trying to make sure that everybody is engaged and included in the conversation. But we also alternated that with the groups working in small teams of 3 to 5 people to do brainstorming and things like that, which is another way that we made sure that people had opportunities to be engaged.
Yeah, and if I can be so bold as to comment as well, it's time moves very quickly also online. So with larger groups and, as you said, Brooke, having people engaged, it limits how many, or how long or how good the discussion on each variable or each link potentially is. That is certainly something to have in mind when planning for this. Your time frame will be related to how many people you should include. I think that's a fair statement. All right, moving on. What's at the top of our list here now? I think it is in activity 2 where variables are selected. I do not understand how the flow is from individual to the group setting. Are all variables used or just some? What about the discussions about how different variable behaviors? How is decided or what's decided on which behavior to use? Now, this is where the power of being a group comes into play. Now we're obviously trying to build consensus. So this part of the exercise is where we are trying to engage participants in meaningful discussions. And we've certainly experienced that people have different opinions. And I think Brooke commented on this earlier in this discussion. Quite often disagreement is hiding another variable or something. Anyone in the group who care to comment on this? Anaely, I haven't heard your voice in a while.
I'm here. No, I don't have much to add about this. I agree with you. And I maybe some clarification about the last part, because there are many questions in one. The discussions about different variable behaviors and how it's decided which behavior. I'm not sure if I understand.
No, I understand it as if we disagree on expected future, for example. But I think the answer is just needs to discuss and agree.
Yeah, and that's why
Still have maybe that's worth commenting on. In the boards we've set up, we have this parking lot, which is really quite convenient. And certainly, if you come into a part of a workshop where there is disagreement or contention, one could park variables in the parking lot. That helps you to not forget about them, but to perhaps move on. And then it may become clearer further on in the workshop what or where to do with or place a variable in the system.
Yeah, and also duplicate variables, and some variables were not used and left in the clustering area because we either didn't have time or the participants were focusing on others. And also we added variables as well. We not only not used some, but we also added some that while we were connecting the diagram, a few variables came out and they were suggesting, oh, this needs to be added. And
yeah, thanks. Anyone else in the group who wish to comment on that? I think this really addresses the core of, what is a group model building session, isn't it? We are trying to reach consensus, and that does involve discussions. All right.
Lars-Kristian.
Yes, Birgit, shoot.
I'm taking over here. We're nearing the end, and there seems to be some very strong preference for doing a quick Miro demo.
Yes, absolutely. Then we will post the link to a Miro board in the chat. Chris, oh, there is the link. And then I think
Christina, nobody else can do this.
So to the audience, if you just click that link, it will take you to Miro, and Christina will guide you through this.
Okay, Christina, maybe
Yes.
can you share your screen?
Yes, I will do so for anyone who is not there. Wow. Okay, so
There.
Oh. You're popular, Christina. Everyone's on your page.
yeah, and everyone is moving. Yeah, so this is yeah. I hope you can also see some of you the Zoom view to see how it actually looks when so many participants are in. Yeah, but of course my laptop is now doing crazy things. Yeah, so maybe I think we can stick a little bit to the graphs over time. So I will pull everyone, don't be alarmed, to where I am. And yeah, I think you can all see the graph over time activity as a whole. And you are probably able to zoom in, and maybe you can just play around and try to draw some graphs or make some example factors. So to do this, you can click on this example factor templates. It might be easier if you zoom in. And if you double click on the name, you will be able to change it. And some of you have already found the pen tool that allows you to draw on the graph. And you can change colors. I'm showing you on Zoom, but I know no one is on Zoom. So yeah, I think you get it. Maybe if people want to just unmute themselves and ask what they cannot figure out. Yeah, I'm approaching this as just an open exploration. I don't know if you want me to do something different.
Question, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Isn't that quite distracting when you're trying to get something done? Like all this noise of things moving around? And
Oops. So I can do this, and I can just stop seeing people, if that is what you meant.
okay.
So you can just show or hide those cursor, depends on the size, right?
Okay.
And I think it's worth mentioning that we are 170 people now, which is a bit excessive for a group model building exercise. It'll be less cluttered with less people.
Good point. Thanks.
Yes, and of course, when you have people in, at least in the initial stages, you kind of take them step by step with having an individual space to work. So, you know, we start, if you can see in my Zoom screen now, we start with an icebreaker, and each participant has its block, and they zoom in and they work independently, and they don't have that many distractions. And then we kind of increase gradually the group work in a sense. And in situations where we want people to be actually very focused and not wandering around, we just enter screen sharing mode. So when we present the problem, we want people to be there, you know. And it happens when we have experienced that there is an excitement with a new tool, as we can see here. And I dare not show the cursors again. Everyone is just, okay, let me try. So it takes a moment to, make sure people are focusing. Yeah, there are already arrows. With all the members here, I think we will see a full CLD in 5 minutes.
We are getting very close to our time frame here now. And in one of the back channels, it was discussed whether we should show other boards. There are other boards on our website, so I would just encourage everyone to go there. Now, just as a comment, without showing another board, you can easily see here with this so-called infinite canvas, you could duplicate this this board many times over. So if you are facilitating several groups, you would just have different boards on the same canvas available. And as a facilitator, you then can get in the helicopter and have a clear overview on how the groups are getting along. You'll quickly zoom out and see, oh, group number 2, there is nothing happening, and then you can jump in and help facilitate or get them started or move them along. So it's really quite versatile in that respect.
Lars, I think we have a question from Hisham.
Hi, yes, thank you. There are other boards, virtual boards available like Mural and Mural.co and others. As a Go model builder yourselves, do you feel that this software has an advantage over the other ones, or is it just the same thing, like functionality-wise and other things?
During this process, we tested some different platforms, and for whatever reason, we ended up using Miro. I think we should be very careful in saying that one is better than the other. We have experience in Miro, and we're really quite happy with its performance. One thing I would say is that myself, I'm involved in a number of different projects, and Miro has become quite a common platform across different disciplines, and that is always convenient, when people are already familiar with the platform. So this is perhaps a sort of a discussion about what people are used to. We certainly tried other platforms. I can't even remember why we landed on using Miro, but that's what we ended up using. I'm sure there are other platforms that are just as good or better for all that we know. But we can say that we are really quite happy with the versatility and functionality offered up in Miro.
Thank you.
I think one quick thing is, I think Miro has nicer arrows, which is important for the work that we do.
Yes, arrows are important.
Well,
I think this flexibility.
Sorry, Christina, go ahead.
I think this flexibility and this, because we could design so many different things, and we could just get messy, and find what felt right, what we felt is closer to the feeling that we wanted this to have. I think the time you spend to get familiar to the platform relative to this flexibility, not only for the design, but also for its different stakeholder and its different time frame that you have. This was something that for me kind of feels very good with Miro.
And with that final remark, we thank you all for attending, and we hope this was interesting. I think we've mentioned we have a website. We do have a website. Please check it out and get in touch if you have comments or questions. We're really quite passionate about spreading the word of the potential of online group model building. So I think on that note, and on behalf of my wonderful colleagues, I say thank you for your attendance today.
Well, I have to thank you guys, everyone. Thank you, Anaely. Thank you, Birgit, Brooke, Christina, and Lars. It was such a great seminar. I really hope you guys learned as I learned today. And I think that's a wrap. Rebecca, do you want to say a few words, or maybe Birgit?
Okay. I just wanted to say thank you to everyone. And if you could please complete the survey to help us understand how we can serve up even better ones than this. We want to keep improving this one. This one was amazing. We want to really thank the team here, Birgit and Brooke and Christina and Lars and Anaely, all of you very much for doing this. And we look forward to other ideas that you guys have about seminars. So please let us know. And if you have an idea that you would like to present to people, please let us know about that as well.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks. Great job, guys.
Thank you.